Hi. So we're going to get started on the skeleton project. I'm going to do a sketch just to get you started. We're going to do two skeletons in this project. We're going to do a front view and a lateral view of the skeleton. All the directions are in my PDF that's presented in the same assignment module as this video will be. So you can get all that information there, but I wanted to do a little demo and get you started on what I think is the best way to approach sketching this, and then we'll talk about refining your drawing and also about transferring it to art paper and rendering it. So let's go ahead and get started. So for this demo, I've got tracing paper. I'm working on tracing paper. The size that I suggested was 14 by 17. So I've got two things going here. I've got a piece of tracing paper that's 14 by 17, so that's going to be pretty easy. But if you don't have a 14 by 17 piece of tracing paper and you're working on, say, just white bond paper, it's not a bad idea to put your parameters down. So I've got a red line here, 14 by 17. So I know what the parameters of my project are. And I also suggested that, the skeleton should probably be about 15 inches or so on a 14 by 17. You don't need to work too big, but you don't want to work too small either, because your line quality won't be that good. So let's go with that 14 by 17 overall size and about a 15-inch skeleton. And what I would do is just sketch both of them at the same time. I've got a front view and a lateral view, anterior view and lateral view. You can have it up on your computer screen and look at it. I printed out a copy here of my skeletons, the ones that I sent you in the PDF for sketching. Now, what you want to do is, what I would do is, it's a good idea, is set your parameters for the top and the bottom of the skeleton. And you can make a line if you want to too. So, as I said, about an inch down from the top. And if you want to make a line, you can see that red line pretty easy. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom, an inch up. And I want to make it around 15, and this would be my halfway point if you do that. Okay, and then what I would do is just start sketching. And I've got, let's say I put this skeleton, which is the front view, anterior view, over here, and I want to give it a little room. So let's say that I put my lateral view over here. You can always adjust them later, because I'm going to show you, or talk at least about how you can refine these sketches, and I'm keeping it pretty light. So this halfway point is really important, because I know that's where the hip bones are going to be, and that's the greater trochanter right here of the femur, and that's your midpoint between the feet and the head. So you want to know that right away. The other midpoint that you want to know about is the knees. They're halfway or midway between the feet and that midline. So that's where your knees would be. Okay? All right, so keeping it nice and light and loose at the beginning. Okay? I'm watching my proportions on the width of it also. Just keeping an eye on my reference. You can always adjust and change things a little later. Okay. No detail. No detail at all. Okay. There's about half a head to 3/4 head in between rib cage and the pelvic crest. So remember that. So I want that midline. It's a drawn midline. I'm not using a ruler for anything except for those first 3 lines. I don't want you to either. Stay very organic with this. Patella, kneecap, tibia, at this point I've got all the structure blocked in where I want it to go. Right? So now I can apply this freehand to the lateral view. It makes sense to do it like this. It's just so much easier. You're going to get much more accurate. I've got my midline here. So my skull came across from this skull. All right. So top of the humerus, shoulder on this one, elbow, top of the pelvic crest, greater trochanter. Okay. So this is my start, and I know it's really light, but it should be. Okay. I would try to avoid sketching, erasing. Rib cage, bottom of the rib cage right there. Nice big arc and curve. I'm using the color erase pencil, by the way. It's light. It's dark enough to see. It's an indigo blue. So that's what I would recommend, something like that to sketch with. You could do it, obviously you can do this in graphite too. So as I'm working my way around the form, I'm adding a little bit more, not so much detail, but a little just stronger contour. And this, the wrist and the hand blocked in. Okay. All right. So I've got both skeletons blocked in. That's what I wanted to do first. Lightly, you can add the feet later. It's no detail, okay? Just gesture drawing. So about an hour into the sketch now, and I'm starting to refine it. And I'm still using color erase pencil, and I'm still sketching it fairly lightly, but it's a little bit more controlled now. You could actually draw a little bit more overhand if you need to. So I'm about an hour into it now, and I'm starting to refine the sketch, and it's still a sketch, but it's much more refined. And getting ready to be able to do a contour line of this using my reference. You could graduate to a darker pencil, like a Prismacolor Premier indigo blue now if you wanted to. No real detail, not as much detail as I'm going to get later, but it's getting there. So this part of it should take you at least an hour to get to this point. I would say to finish the sketch to where you can take it to the next layer, refine layer, at least 2 hours, I would say. So plan on spending that. When you're doing the ribs, I would recommend, we've got 24 ribs, and so that means basically 12 on this side. You're going to see probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So about 14 on either side. So what I would do is just lightly block in probably the midline first, and then start to define it and refine it. Otherwise you'll be sketching and erasing and sketching and erasing. So block it in lightly first. When your preliminary sketch is finished, you can, if you're working on tracing paper, you have tracing paper, you can put another piece of tracing paper on top, tape it down, and what you want is a nice clean contour line drawing. Now the sketch is a sketch. It does what it does, but you really want a nice clean contour line drawing. So this is my contour line drawing. My sketch was underneath. I taped it together and redrew this single clean contour line. No shading, nothing like that. Okay? If you're not working on tracing paper, you just have white paper, and let's say that this was your sketch and this is white paper, you can tape that to the window during the day and put another piece of paper over it, and you should be able to see quite clearly through just white paper. Shows up really well. Okay? I talk about in my PDF how to transfer your drawing as well, okay, for finishing, for rendering, all right? But I do want a clean presentation. I don't want just a sketch, and I do want labels, okay? Hope that's helpful.